Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call to order this meeting. This is the City of San Diego Commission on Police Practices Ad Hoc Transition Planning Committee meeting of Friday, March the 18th of 2022. For roll call, I'm going to do that from our Zoom participants list. I'm Doug Case. I am the chair. We have Patrick Anderson, who is the Commission Community Outreach Chair. We have Brandon Hilpert, who is the chair of the commission. We have commission member Diana Dent. We have our interim executive director, Charmaine Mosley. We have Alina Conde, who is our executive assistant. We have Kate Yavendetti, who is our, from Women Occupy, who is our liaison to San Diegans for Justice. And we have Robin Resendez, who is our complaints coordinator. And go back to the agenda, please. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment received. Alina, you can start sharing. Thank you.
You can make that a little bit bigger, please. There we go. So I will give updates. Nothing really new on the budget process, other than we did give the mayor a update. And Charmaine and I had a Charmaine, Robin and I had a meeting with Department of Finance this past week regarding our current budget, letting them know how much we spent, how much we expect to spend, and so forth. And so we have a lot of unspent money because we had budgeted for staff positions which we have not yet hired, and so we were letting them know what was realistic to expect for this year, so they could release the funds to other departments. But that will not affect our ability to have those funds included in the next fiscal year's budget. Anything you want to say about that, Charmaine?
No, you covered it well. Thank you.
Okay. Staffing, we have some exciting news, which I already shared with Patrick, and that is that we are now able to begin our search for our deputy executive director. The city has given us the green light to go ahead and use their executive search firm for this position. And Charmaine and I had a introductory meeting with him on Wednesday, and we've invited him to next week's transition planning committee meeting, and so we will devote the vast majority of next week's meeting to a meeting with him, and then take care of any timely business that we need to take care of. And then at that meeting, we also will talk about setting up a community roundtable or forum for him to get feedback from the community on what the expectations are for this position. And we did share the scope of work that we had prepared when we were planning on securing our own executive search firm, and it sounded like what we had proposed was pretty much in line with what they are able to do for us, and so we can go over that in more detail next week. But we're very excited about that, and then we also will be able to use that firm to hire our other positions, and which would be the next in line would be the supervising investigator, then probably the policy analyst and performance auditor in a concurrent search.
I just wanted to also add that you know, this is the city's executive search firm, and it will be costing us $25,000 for each search that we do, and we do have that in the budget.
Okay. We have any update on the scheduling of our proposed amendment for the interim operating procedures regarding officer-involved shooting cases?
Yes, I'll be working on starting the docketing of that item next week, and we're aiming for the end of April to put that on the PSNLN committee agenda.
I'm sorry, what was it again?
April
April 8th?
No, end of April, around April, I think it was April 27th or April 28th.
Okay. Okay, and then office space, so we just got a meeting request this morning to meet with Karen Johnson from Real Estate Assets, or whatever the name of that department is.
Dream.
What?
It's now called Dream. It's the Department of Real Estate, Airport, I think Mobility, something like that.
Okay, I'll just call it the Real Estate
Dream.
Department.
Dream.
And so with the issue with the invoice for the space designer, whatever they're called, has been taken care of, and so we're now able to move forward on that. Nothing new on standing rules. Anything new on community outreach, Patrick?
Nothing new.
Okay, and the legal counsel contract, is that still on schedule for, what is it, April the 5th, Charmaine?
Yes, it's going to be scheduled for April 4th or April 5th on the city council agenda. Also, the docketing for that item will be completed today. I have to sign off on it today.
Okay, and is that going to be on consent?
I don't think it's going to be on consent.
It's not going to be on consent?
No, so I'll have to do a PowerPoint as well, so.
Okay. Why is it not going to be on consent, do you know?
I was informed by the city attorney's office that that's not an item that will be on consent, and maybe it's due to the amount,
Okay,
contract amount.
okay. And so maybe we can invite him to the, so that the 4th and the 5th would be, just drop my calendar, Monday or Tuesday. So maybe we can invite him to our meeting on the 8th.
Okay.
And then we had a meeting this past week with Mayor Gloria, and his policy advisor, Matt, I always forget how to pronounce his last name. How do you pronounce his last name?
Matthew Y.
Matthew.
That's
Okay,
how we
and
refer to him.
I believe it's Yagagian.
Say.
I think that's the proper way to say it. I think it's Yagagian.
Okay, I'll just call him Matthew Y. And Brandon, do you want to give a report on that meeting?
Sure. No, I mean, obviously, we've met with all the city council members now and now the mayor's office. As everyone can assume, they're quite busy. So we have a lot of things to go over in 30 minutes. But we did have a conversation with the mayor, kind of explain what our issues kind of are regarding kind of hopefully getting new commissioners appointed. As the mayor's kind of a little bit hand tied on that because he can't really do anything on that, but he did say he was going to have a conversation with city council member Monica Montgomery Stepp, city council president pro tem Monica Montgomery Stepp, to kind of see like where she is on that process. We talked, as Doug said, we talked a little bit about the budget, and then we also kind of talked about the need for us to be able to have all the records for the city and the police department that have anything to do with our oversight piece. And I did share some of our struggles with body-worn camera issues and sometimes trying to get copies of policies and procedures. But no, I think it was a really positive thing. We also did ask if we'd be able to participate in the meet and confer as it relates to our implementation ordinance. He was going to check with legal. He wasn't sure the status on that. So we at least express our interest, and they'll let us know if that's something that we can do. I think that's pretty much it.
Can I also add, I also sent requests over to, I believe it's the employee relations individuals as to whether or not we can participate in meet and confer. I sent a follow-up this week as well.
Okay, then we'll go on to unfinished business. The first one is
Hey, before we jump to that, Kate has her hand up.
okay. I didn't show my screen. Go ahead, Kate.
Hi, I would just like to add that our legal counsel gave us a legal opinion that said that people, individuals can participate in the meet and confer. So if you get any negative feedback from whomever, I can, because we're going to ask for the same thing, to be able to participate and or to have a transcript of the meeting, the minutes of the meetings. So if you get any negative feedback on that, let me know, and I'll see if I can share that part of the legal opinion that we received.
Okay, thank you. Okay, then we'll go on to unfinished business. The first is the issue of our vacancies on the interim commission. And actually, it's a two-part discussion. One is the request to have a standalone ordinance to be able to temporarily fill those positions until we get the permanent commission. And we'll talk about that second. Brandon, I think, has drafted some language for that. And the first, we talked last week about some different options, and Patrick had a discussion with Brandon, and so we decided to continue the discussion this week when Patrick was here to get his thoughts on ways of dealing with our backlog of cases because of the vacancies. Right now, we have 110 cases in our queue, and normally we have, prior to COVID, we generally were like 20 cases are left in the queue, and so that's a substantial increase. And so, Patrick, do you want to share what your thoughts were on how we might modify our case review if we don't get additional commissioners, or until such time as we get additional commissioners?
Sure. I want to start by saying that one of the main reasons that we have such a backlog, there are several contributing factors. One of them is that at the beginning of the pandemic, the delay in giving us remote access to cases was for so many months that we just weren't able to do any case review. I forget, almost a year, I believe. I can't remember actually how long it was. Maybe it wasn't quite that long. After being told that it was not feasible, that we needed to research a bunch of other technologies and so on. So I just want that to be on the record again, that a quicker move to remote access by internal affairs would have alleviated some of this problem. Of course, the other problem is that we can't appoint any temporary people. And so those of us who are still on the commission are pretty radically overburdened. The suggestion that I made at the last closed meeting, I believe it was, I can't remember if it was open or closed, of the commission, was that the biggest time demand of case reviews that could be reduced is the writing of case reports. There was another commissioner who well, actually, if it was a closed meeting, I can't say what someone else said, but a change that has been made, I believe, in the last couple of weeks is that CPP staff is going to fill out a portion of the case report so that the individual case reviewer won't have to, and that does shave a little bit of time. I won't go into the details, but it'll shave a little bit of time off of case review. We can't really cut down the amount of time we spend reviewing a case because that would betray our purpose. It's not as if we are going to cut watching body-worn camera footage or reading the investigation report from IA or researching the relevant policy and so on. We can't, and we shouldn't cut that. But writing up case reports that the public never sees for every single case, where a description of the case and every detail of the case, a description of every detail of the allegation and the internal affairs investigation and so on, that seems like something we might be able to change. And so my recommendation was that we change our standing rules on case reports so that for cases where the team, after its initial review, believes that that internal affairs got it right where there's no sustained finding, we should essentially eliminate a full case report, which is just a recitation of all the information that's already in the IA report, and write a very brief 1-paragraph sort of, agreeing with the internal affairs investigation. Again, these are case reports that the public never sees by law. And so spending so much time writing case reports where you're really just regurgitating what's already in the internal affairs case, but putting it in your own words. And because of the security settings, we can't cut and paste aspects of the, so you have to sit and type out every single word of your own report. That seems like time that could be better spent elsewhere. So again, just to formalize it, the recommendation is that for cases in which the team does its initial review, agrees with all findings, and there are no sustained findings, the team forgoes writing a full case report and instead writes a very brief paragraph or less. The team has reviewed this case, found no problems with the investigation, and agrees with the lack of sustained findings.
Okay, I see Charmaine and Kate's hands up, but I had a couple of thoughts first, and then I'll call on Charmaine and Kate in that order. I talked with Patrick, I guess the day before yesterday, and I like that approach, but we want to make sure a couple of things. Number one is that that we have at least 2 people on the team that review the initial case. I don't want just one person going through and saying this is a case that we could forego doing a deep dive into. And I don't think that the commission should vote on it if we haven't done a deep dive into it. So it basically would be kind of similar to a audit, and then we would have to give some consideration to what kind of a letter we would send to the complainant, because it would not be our standard letter. And then just to comment, it's generally true that our reports are not available to the public, but because of SB 1421 and SB 16, some of our cases are releasable to the public, the more serious cases. And of course, those probably would not be the cases that would be, we would forego a full review of. And so with that, I'll call on Charmaine next.
Yes, and thank you for saying that, committee chair Case. I just wanted to clarify that point because as we're moving forward, there are new laws that are popping up and becoming effective. 1421 is one, and as well as SB 16. I think there's another one where cases that are officer involved shooting cases, in custody death cases, great bodily injury, perjury cases. There are a lot of other ones, and also the definition of great bodily injury that fluctuates sometimes, right? So we want to be careful and thinking that not all of the commission's reports are not being released, because they are.
Okay, and again, those probably would not be the cases that would apply to this proposal. And I also would want to say we probably would not want to revise our interim operating procedures and probably just maybe suspend them internally, because to amend them would require going to a city council and that would kind of further delay things. And so, Kate.
Well, actually, that was also my question, and I guess I had not realized that. Well, let me back up. I thought that that CPP was moving toward full transparency, so that all cases would at least have some sort of mention publicly. A case came in, and and this was the issue, and it was not sustained or whatever. So I I guess I would like a cite to the law that says that it's not okay to make all that public, because CLRB does. And so that's why I was raising that question. And,
Okay, well,
and there have been a lot of talk in the community about, you know, wanting to know what's going on with all of the cases, so that, you know, we could see if there's some sort of a pattern. Out of 110 cases, are 80 of them problems with harassment of unhoused people? Or, you know, what kinds of complaints are coming in, so that people can see that. So that's my question. And I guess Patrick probably knows what the law is. I don't. So if somebody can, I'd like to look that up.
okay, we are still planning on moving ahead with doing our, what we refer to as redacted case reviews. We haven't been doing that because it requires our legal counsel to review it first, and Charmaine to do it first. And because of our backlog of cases, we haven't had the ability to do that. Plus we don't have the legal counsel on board yet. Then it also requires the legal counsel of the department to review it before it gets put online. And again, I think that's going to be a very important, transparent change. And what we're proposing is actually much more detailed than what CLRB does, but it still is done in a way that where nothing is personally identifiable, so you can't tell from there which case it actually was. If it was your case, you probably could tell, but it would not include names, dates, and so forth. Patrick.
Yeah, and the other main difference with CLRB is that CLRB has its investigators on staff. So the investigators are writing the reports. They can write them with those laws in mind, so that it doesn't require a member of CLRB to then rewrite and reframe the entire thing. Whereas with internal affairs writes its reports without having to abide by any of the confidentiality laws, because it's part of the disciplining and the employment authority of the agency. And so let me demystify a bit what I'm suggesting here, because I don't mean, none of this would get in the way of making everything public that we can make public. And I also just want to say that this does not apply to officer involved shootings. It does not apply to in custody deaths. And it wouldn't really apply to the vast majority of complaints, about uses of force or of discrimination that come in. I have to be careful here, because it is almost always the case that the commission and the team reviewing those kinds of complaints will have some kind of comment, right? Or some kind of, if not a formal disagreement, there will at least be some kind of objection or comment or what have you, policy proposal, et cetera. And so those cases wouldn't fall into this category. They would get the same treatment they always have. The problem here is that we have so many cases, and commissioners, the commissioners who are left, typically have, if you factor in the number of hours that this role is supposed to take, you factor in the number of meetings that we have, closed and open meetings. We've had to have more than usual because of the backlog. By the hours, that leaves commissioners right now, you should be able to expect that you're spending 2 to 3 hours a week on case review. If you factor out all the meetings, right? That then would add up to about 20 hours a month, which is at the upper end of what we're supposed to be spending. None of us is spending that small of an amount of time, by the way, but we have all of these cases, the ones that are, every complaint is important, every case is important. There are some of these cases where there is a major opportunity for oversight to do something, right? To actually do something. And these are cases of concern. If there's a way that the commission can really put its focus on these cases and give its time to these cases, it feels like this is going to improve the quality of oversight during this interim period, because the quality of oversight right now in San Diego is pretty pretty deeply textured by exhaustion on the part of everybody on this commission, and a feeling of just insurmountable caseload. So that's where this is coming from. And again, I'm only suggesting this for those cases they don't involve an officer involved shooting, they don't involve an in custody death. You know, there are cases where, and I agree with Doug, I'm not talking about one person reviewing the case, but a minimum of a 2-person team reviewing the case and agreeing there are no sustained findings and there's no objection to the internal affairs investigation. That's what I'm suggesting. Kate, I'm hesitant to suggest this because I want an oversight commission where every complaint gets a full investigation, an independent investigation by people outside of PD. That's what I want. I'm looking at the practicality of the workload now and the inability to bring in others to help with that workload.
And the work, unless we do something, the workload is going to go up, not down, for the reasons that Patrick said. Kate, and then Charmaine, is your hand still up, or is it?
Yes, my hand is up because I wanted to piggyback on what Patrick just mentioned.
So we'll go to Charmaine first because her hand is up, and then Kate.
Okay, just because I think there should be other options available, just because we know that the cases are going to continue to go up. And then we're going to have a dwindling number of commissioners. Right now, not all of the commissioners that we have appointed are really actively reviewing cases. So the number is lower and the cases are continuing to come in. I know recently I made a suggestion as to put in a moratorium on the cases that are coming in from internal affairs. That could be something that can be triaged from myself and working with internal affairs to actually have certain cases still be assigned to the commission while others be held at bay for a little bit, just because we know the numbers are going to continue to come. There are cases that were assigned to the teams last year, and we still have complainants calling in, waiting and wanting to know the status of their cases, right? So we have to think big picture. We know that case review takes a lot of time. Even if we try to limit the case reports, that's not going to really, I know some teams are happy with it and some teams don't even want to do it, but that's not really going to stop the number of cases that's going to be still coming in, that's going to be causing the burden for the commissioners. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Yeah, but see, I'd be very hesitant to do a moratorium. I think Patrick's solution is better because then we can, Patrick's solution is basically the triage. And so we're triaging the cases we have in the queue, and then we would continue to triage the cases that come in.
But like some teams have 30 cases right now, right?
Right.
And we're going to continue to have commissioners resigning. And, at this point, I think it should go to the entire commission as to think about the options and to have these discussions, not just this committee, because, even the cases that don't have sustained findings, those cases are pushed way to the bottom, right? And what if the team wanted eventually to give an officer a sustained finding? They can't do that, right? So where's the oversight in that? It's diminished. So that's just my my feel on this whole thing. Thank you.
Okay. And you lowered your hand, Kate. Was your question answered, or?
No, I knew that you knew I wanted to say something, so I just did that.
Oh.
I just want to be clear. I'm not at all criticizing the proposal about how to triage and deal with cases during this interim. My only question was, what I heard was that, you know, a lot of cases you can't make information public by law, but my understanding now in the discussion is that that has to do with confidentiality and making sure that what actually goes out public is doesn't violate POBAR and confidentiality and that sort of thing. And that's a real different thing from just saying we can't make anything public. So, I mean, I understand the obviously the difficulty in getting through all the cases and getting something written out, and you know, you still don't have the website available so that you can put even redacted cases or any of that public. But I just, because I know that people, you know, public watches this meeting, I just want people to understand that it is still a goal of the CPP to have information about every case as much as can be revealed under law made public. Am I right about that?
Yes, that is still our goal, yes.
Okay, so I just want to be clear about that because it sounded to me like, oh, we can't do that. So that's what my comment was focused on. Thank you.
Okay, Patrick and then Brendan.
Yeah, just very quickly, thank you for that, Kate. And just to demystify that part of it a bit, the way that it is supposed to work is that we do a case review, we write up the commission's version of the case, and then after the commission has voted on it, somebody that then goes into that case and redacts anything that could be used to point to a particular person. So there's this extra step of redacting so that it can be posted as soon as possible. And in the current situation, there's no time available for anybody, and there's just not the staffing to actually redact the cases to be able to push them out. And so I'm really glad you brought this up, because this proposal would actually help us get closer to the point where we can start we have the hours to start redacting the cases. But if I have 2 to 3 hours a week for case review, and again, that's people are generally spending more than that. But if I have 2 to 3 hours a week for case review, and I'm spending that writing up case reports that are, you know, that have no issues, then I'm not writing up case reports or doing case reviews for the cases that do have issues. And yeah, okay, I'll stop. Brandon's up.
Brendan?
Yeah, I was just going to clarify. I mean, the idea is, yes, we do still want to do those case summaries and still put those out publicly. So even on I would say the cases that Patrick is saying that we agree with internal affairs, we would still, I think, still write up that kind of that summarized report and still put that up publicly. So yeah, I just reiterating, the idea isn't to hide any information. It's still to get all that out there. It's just getting the time and the resources to be able to do it.
Diana, you haven't weighed in. Does this approach seem appropriate to you?
It seems appropriate, but you know, just going back to just, you know, having the office staff fill out that data that, you know, that takes us hours to do. I want to thank you guys for getting that done, so you can just pick up the case and review it. It is challenging to get all of the review in, but I think, you know, even though just writing a paragraph, it's still going to take some time to get the details in that really need to be in, and to always be mindful of the complainant and getting their complaint clear to the public, if we're going, or even to the board when we do our report. So sure, the report is fine, and I don't see any problem with that. I just want to make sure that the complainant's view and what the complaint is pretty clear, because oftentimes we just want to make sure that their voices are heard, and so the public knows that.
Okay. And as Charmaine mentioned, this is, something that the full commission is going to have to decide, and we do have it on our agenda for next Tuesday. Patrick, can I get you to write up your proposal so that we can then propose it in the form of a motion, and we can amend it if necessary, et cetera, at the meeting?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. And if you could send that to me so that maybe you and I can discuss if there's any questions, so we can have it maybe kind of ready to go at the meeting. And I don't think we need to actually include the motion in the agenda. We have the topic there, and commissioners may have other options as well. But at least we'll be prepared for that discussion on Tuesday. Brandon, do you want to talk about the standalone ordinance?
Sure, and I can share this my screen real quick. So basically what I did is I pulled items from the ordinance as it stands. So it is the draft ordinance. And then on top of that, we had previously looked at a couple different things about our proposals. So the idea here is if we decided to move forward, we could try to push this over to the city council, see if they would move forward on it. So the selection criteria basically is exactly what's in the current draft ordinance, high level, and then anyone please chime in if you have questions or thoughts. Citizenship won't be considered. Members have to be in the city of San Diego at the time of the appointment. During the interim period, which is a little bit different than I think once it actually goes through. And again, this is as it's defined by the section. I'm saying section D won't be required because that's going to be what tells us you need 5 seats that are from the low or moderate income levels. And I just think if we're going to have people that are only going to be on potentially for a year, I think it's going to be hard to get people to do that anyway. And the other thing is, I was going to suggest proposing leaving out the 2 additional youth seats. That's what would take the commission number from the 23, which it should be today, to the 25. But obviously open to suggestions on that. Maintaining the ordinance's prohibition on law enforcement or their family members from being able to participate, as well as city employees. And then also keeping the section for G about background checks not being performed by San Diego Police Department. That would be the city's personnel department. And then we'd keep all the existing disqualification criteria that's currently in the ordinance. And I don't know if you guys want to raise hands as we go through, but the other thing for the term, it's a little bit different than the ordinance, but I think we should probably just say that interim commissioners will basically stay either until they're reappointed or replaced by the city council, which kind of follows the exact same process that we have today. The idea is trying to keep it as clean as possible. And then for nominations, this is something that we sent out to the city council as one of many recommendations we had on December 1st. Basically, we would create a nominations committee, and then that nominations committee would be composed of 9 people. 3 current or former commissioners. And I apologize for all the trash noise going on outside. And then 6 community members that would be chosen by the commission, 2 of which would be academic professionals that have some kind of specialization in police and criminal justice and or civil rights. And then we would select 4 members from community nonprofits. And the idea there is we would try to get groups to be able to submit people for consideration, and that none of the people on the nominations committee should be associated with law enforcement. Those are recommendations that we had already made to the city council, and the rest of it I try to keep simple by leaving it as what was in the ordinance. So with that, from a high level, I'll see if Doug wants to open up to questions.
Yeah, question that I have first, we go back to the scroll up a little bit to the term. I think the term should be until the new commission, well, until permanent commissioners are appointed, which is the way that it is now. Because I mean, the current plan is for the city council to make appointments of 25 people all at once. And some of them will be for a 1-year term and some will be for a 2-year term, so that they will end up with a staggered terms. But everybody's term officially comes to an end when they do the appointment, and then some people may be reappointed, if that makes sense. And so I would just change that so that this, that they maybe have the wording be such that they serve as additional interim commissioners until the city council is able to appoint the permanent commission. And then I see Kate's hand is up. Go ahead, Kate. You're muted, Kate.
I know. I'm on a different computer and I'm not, I'm at home. And so it's a little different for me. I'm fine with the way that it's written, but then Brandon at the very end said something about maintaining the qualifications that were set out in the draft ordinance. And as I talked about at the last meeting, many of us are adamantly opposed to that last minute amendment that was added to the draft ordinance. So there's nothing in this that says that, and the draft ordinance isn't law. So I'm just hoping that that comment was, it's not reflected in this, and so I'm fine with this. But I just wanted to be really clear that that many of us are adamantly opposed to that new mandatory exclusion that was added at the last minute without any notice to the community or to the CPP, as far as I know. And we're going to be fighting against that when it comes back to city council. So anyway, I mean, that's just my comment. If this gets adopted, since the draft ordinance is still a draft ordinance, that new exclusion isn't part of this. So I just want that to be clear.
Yeah, and just to let everyone know, kind of the reason why I try to keep it as simple as possible is I want to make it as easy for the city council to adopt it. And I don't want to give them any excuses to basically delay and not have us be able to appoint new commissioner. So that's why I really tried to follow the draft ordinance, and I agree. I think it's going to have unintended consequences. I understand why they did it, but I don't think we need to rehash that. I think we all have concerns
I think the
about
law is that if this gets adopted, then what's currently the qualifications, and I can't remember if I like them or don't like them, is what's in effect at this time, not what's in the draft ordinance, because it's not law and hasn't been adopted yet. So
Yeah, well, and this
if we just leave it out, I think it's a whole lot safer than stirring the pot at this point.
Yeah, well, and I agree with Kate, and this will be an ordinance that will basically have a sunset. It'll be a temporary ordinance, for lack of a better term. In other words, it is a stopgap measure until the permanent commission appointment process is set up. I do think it might be good, Brandon, to include that the priority will be given to city council to applicants from city council districts that are not currently represented. So even though we don't necessarily want to have a rigid geographical restriction in trying to fill the interim commission, I do think that it would be appropriate and politically helpful to have priority given to making sure that we have representation from all city council districts if possible.
Yes, so I highlighted that one section. I was saying that we would strive to find candidates filling the missing categories. So that'd be, socioeconomic, graphic, backgrounds, all of that, and city council districts. So that was kind of the goal. So if we were to try to put new people in there, we'd try to find people that aren't currently represented. I would say both from, well, everything. There's like 8 different criteria we have in there. And I would say all the ones that are missing, we would try to have those people prioritized first.
Yes, sorry I missed that. I was so perfect. Any other comments?
Diana has her hand up.
Diana.
Just a quick question. I know you've met with all of the council members and Montgomery Step as well. What was their feeling about this standalone ordinance?
It's a mixed bag. I kind of, by doing like a back and napkin calculation, I think there are 5 city council members that would probably vote for such an ordinance. There is some hesitation from others. Monica Montgomery Stepp's office is not in support of it. They want to do it all at once. And I think her goal is she doesn't want to, I think, kind of parse it out into kind of mini segments. And I think if the times were different, I think that might be a good tactic. I think given the realities of how the commission is trying to work today, I respectfully think that that's not the best course of action for us. We did tell pretty much all the city council members and the mayor that if there is not action, realistically, we will have more people resign. And then that's going to start essentially a death spiral for the commission, because as we pointed out, the more people that resign, the more work it is for the remaining commissioners who are already doing far beyond their, 20 hours that we've said is your estimated time per month. And it's just going to be too much for people to do. And so they're going to resign. So, I've asked in our meetings, I've said, like, I'd rather you do something now than basically be forced to do it in, 5 or 6 months when you don't have a choice because the commission can't work.
Thank you, because I
So-
just wanted to know, since you had spoken to all of them,
Yeah.
exactly what their feelings were. And, is this just a mute kind of thing that we're putting forth rather than, having it really be something that will truly be considered by the
I think
city council?
all of them are concerned. But I think kind of just from gauging the temperature of those meetings, I would think that if it went to a vote, we might have 5 vote for it. And there's a couple that I'm not sure how they would go, and I'm sure there's a couple who would vote against. But I think what we try to do is really share the importance of why this is important and why we need to do it. And I think the majority of them understand that, we're in a tricky spot. Unfortunately, sometimes politics doesn't work until they have to. And I would hate to see it get to that point for us.
Okay, thank you, Brandon.
Yeah, and I might add to that another political reality is this would go through, most likely go through public safety and livable neighborhoods first. And the city council members tend to defer to the chair, especially on this matter where she has kind of been the lead person. And so it'll be politically challenging to make it happen, which is why we're looking at alternatives. Although frankly, I think we need both. I think we need a proposal along the line of Patrick's, as well as being able to get additional commissioners, and we'll see what we can do. Okay. Your hand's still up, but Diana, are you done or? Okay, and so
I'm thinking for next steps on this is we can bring this to the full commission for comment and feedback.
okay, do you mind revising the term so that it's clear that this is just a interim measure?
Yeah, I added until permanent commissioners are appointed.
Okay, perfect.
As you were talking. Yep.
Okay, so perfect. Then can we go ahead and attach this with the agenda, Charmaine?
Sherman, I can send you a link to this, but it's on our Google shared drive.
Okay, and then if we can go ahead then and put the agenda back up. And the next one is the selection process for the executive director. And if you can scroll down to proposal that I wrote up. It's probably all the way down. I don't watch. I'm not sure where you put it. So let me just see. And why don't you scroll all the way down to the bottom is my guess.
What are we looking for?
We're looking for the proposal for the ordinance for the.
It's at the bottom.
Yeah. There we go. So move it up just a little bit. Okay, stop. Okay, there we are. And so the first part there is basically one sentence. And I'm proposing that we amend the ordinance. And this is in the ordinance that established the office of the Commission on Police Practices, where it talks about the executive director to say that the commission shall adopt operating procedures to be approved by the council to I'm not sure what, I say I have a typo there. Oh my gosh, I'm missing.
Yeah, it says to following appointment. There's a typo.
Yeah, something.
The council.
Yes, I must have done something wrong when I was saving. So I'm gonna have to rewrite that. But it's supposed to say the commission shall adopt operating procedures to be approved by the council to ensure commission and community input into the selection process. So it would say the commission shall adopt operating procedures to be approved by the council to ensure commission and community input into the selection process. That's going to be the sentence. And then the following the appointment, that's what's already there. So basically, I'm just proposing adding that one sentence saying that the commission will be required to adopt the operating procedure. And then if you scroll down, and this would not be part of the ordinance, but it reflects what our discussions have been to date of what that operating procedure might include. And so the first step is to get them to add that sentence. And then the second step would be to develop the operating procedure. As I wasn't in the meeting with Monica Montgomery Step, and Brandon has had to step away. But my understanding is that she was of the opinion that we didn't necessarily, she didn't seem opposed to this, but she didn't feel it was necessary and felt that we could create an operating procedure without it being included in the ordinance. I would rather have it in the ordinance so that it's specified in the ordinance that the intent is for the commission and the community to have input into the process. So even if they chose not to amend the ordinance, we could still propose an operating procedure for the selection process. And that procedure might include, this is what we've discussed, is employing an executive search firm to conduct a national search and review and research applications and select the top approximately 5 candidates. And then the commission would select approximately 10 community organizations, which would each appoint 1 representative to a community panel, and then community panels would sign a confidentiality agreement. Then the same and the top candidates make a presentation to the community panel, and they would provide feedback on forms provided by human resources. And then we would repeat that process with the commission itself, and then scroll down. And then we would have a nominations commission from the commission, consisting of the commission's cabinet and a representative and a community representative. They would then interview the candidates, and so it would be approximately 5, and then select the top 3 and submit a confidential memorandum to the city council evaluating the candidates and indicating why we selected those top 3. And we would also have somebody from human resources participate in those interviews as an advisor to make sure that we're doing everything according to city policy and the law. And then we would send those names to the city council, and the city council would conduct their own reviews of those 3 nominees in closed session. And then they would approve them in open session. And so any thoughts on that process? That's kind of what we discussed before. I just put into writing what it would look like. So I wanted to be able to send to the city council what we envision it looking like. They may have additional thoughts because they have to approve the operating procedures. So any comments? Okay, seeing no comments, is there?
I just want to say, I'm fine with this procedure. I'm just hoping that if the city council makes any amendments, that we have some foreknotice that there's going to be changes made.
Right. And at this point, we're just
I
asking
don't know how we deal with that, but.
And at this point, we're just asking them to add that one sentence. And so if there's no objection, we'll go ahead and attach this to the agenda for discussion. And Charmaine, after this meeting, I will correct it so that that sentence makes sense. So we can go on scrolling up to the top. Back to the agenda. Scroll on down, please. Okay, and then I'm sorry, go back up. So we're going to essentially the next two items on unfinished business are on hold until we have our legal counsel on board and until we have our performance auditor on board. I just wanted to keep them on the agenda. Scroll down. I don't think we had any more new business. And our next meeting is actually going to be the meeting with the executive search firm. And then I think if looking at the calendar, so that would put us on the oops. So that would be the 25th, and so then we would have a regular commission meeting on the on April Fool's Day. And then on the following commission meeting is when we would have our legal counsel join us, and we would maybe devote that meeting to having him introduce himself and then talking about his first project, which would be the investigation procedures. Is there anything else that people want to put on the agenda for April 1st? Kate.
Yes, it didn't get into the minutes, and I was going to ask it to be asked to the amended to the minutes, but I had asked at the last meeting if the CPP would take a position on that new amendment about mandatory exclusions, if we could have a discussion about that, maybe at our committee meeting, and then move it to the full CPP.
Okay, and so why don't we put that on the agenda for the April 1st meeting?
Okay, thank you. I have to go to.
Okay.
I have to return my computer back to my apartment.
Okay, so Alina, if you can make sure that gets put in the notes so we can, I'll remember to put that on the agenda for April 1st. And is there anything else we need to have on the agenda next week other than and did Patrick leave as well? Oh, he did. Okay, I had to go to the meeting. And so I'm going to make sure that Patrick has his calendar next week. So we want to go ahead and schedule the community forum next week. So maybe if other people can bring their calendars as well. And if there's no items that have to be considered next week, we will devote the entire meeting to that selection process. If anything comes up between now and then, I'll simply add that to the agenda. Excuse me. And with that, I think we can adjourn unless somebody has anything else to raise. Okay, then we are adjourned. Thank you.
All right, have a good weekend. All right.
We adjourned a minute early.